Let's begin. We're going to continue on the Sabbath. Everything to do with the Sabbath. Remember, we're looking at everything Jesus did on the Sabbath on the seventh day to see the prophetic and what it's saying. Because in every seventh day event that Jesus took part in, deliberately did, it is saying something prophetically. All right? So we're going to look at the next thing that happened tonight. See what is this thing saying for us of what's to come. Why is it written the way it's written, this thing that happened on the Sabbath? So tonight we're going to start Luke 14. And it came to pass as he went into the house of one of the chief Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath day, that they watched him. And behold, there was a certain man before him which had the dropsy. And Jesus answering spoke unto the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? And they held their peace, and he took him and healed him, and let him go. And answered them, saying, Which of you shall have an ass or an ox fallen into a pit, and will not straightway pull him out of on the Sabbath day? And they could not answer him again to these things. All right. So this man is sick on the seventh day. Jesus comes to heal him. And by doing that, he deliberately confronts these religious leaders in what he's doing, because it's directly against what they believe. I mean, he's actually he's trying to get something out of them, doing it that way. He's wanting a reaction. Jesus asks, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? So if we look at it spiritually, you must understand, on the Sabbath day, the seventh day that's to come, there is going to be healing. But not just healing like we think, bodily healing. It's going to be healing in the fullness of everything. You, nature, everything is going to get healed. It's going to be the biggest healing that's going to start and take place from that time forward until Jesus comes physically back and restores his kingdom. All right? So, in verse 5, he makes mention of two animals. An ass or an ox. And he's making mention of them in a negative way. Because they both need help. They are stuck and they need help. Why help? Because they both have fallen into a pit. Alright, you must look at the detail in the verses. A pit, what is a pit? It's a dark place, a deep dark place, and you cannot get out of it on your own. You're stuck there. You need help if you fall into a pit. But there's two animals that he's saying, will you not go save these two people on the Sabbath, these two animals? So, a donkey, in the negative, talks about people that are stubborn, strong-willed, and unyielding. Remember, we are supposed to be good donkeys. I've done teachings on that many times. We should be the donkey that Jesus rode on. Where the focus is on the one sitting on you, not you the donkey. But there's negative donkeys also. A donkey is also a picture of religious people, especially leaders. But here, it's talking about people that are like a donkey, stubborn. In Afrikaans sê ons, hy steek soos 'n donkey. He's stubborn. Alright? The other animal is an ox. An ox is people that are under the law. It's an animal of the law. Or it speaks of people that are tied up with work in their lifestyle. They don't have freedom and are in bondage. Because the ox is an animal they use for work in the fields. Both of them are stuck in a pit in a dark place. Things are not well. A pit is a picture either of the Holy Spirit with the water in the pit, or a negative thing if it's a dark one, just a pit. It speaks about darkness. Those people, those two animals are in deep darkness. They need help. When are they going to get help? He said, won't you help them on the Sabbath? So in the seventh day, we're going to help people to get them out of the pit. out of that darkness where they are stuck. I said here, on the Sabbath day, the seventh day, the sons of God will pull them out of the dark, deep hole that they find themselves in and free them into the kingdom of light. That's going to be a thing that's going to happen on the seventh day. I mean, if you just look around you, people that you know, I can guarantee you, most people that you can think of are somewhere in their life in a dark pit. I'm talking about people that's struggling and going through things, and they're in a deep dark pit and they need help. And we can try and help them, but at the end of the day, it's only Jesus that can help. It's the only one that can help. So we continue. The next one, verse 7. And he put forth a parable. So you must remember, this is all one thing he's teaching. Everything I'm reading is the one thing he's saying to these Pharisees, to the church leaders. And he put forth a parable to those which were bidden, in other words invited, when he marked how they chose out the chief rooms, saying unto them, choosing the seats of honor. So for me it is as if Jesus was giving them an example, as if he saw they're not getting it. So he's going to the next example to see if they're going to get it now. He's going to give them another example to emphasize what he's actually trying to say in the first one that he just said. When thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than you be bidden of him. Other words, as jy in 'n plek kom, jy vat nie die beste nie. Jy kyk eens wat doen die ander mense. And he that bade thee and him came and say to thee, give this man place, and thou begin with shame to take the lowest room. Ander woorde, if you come into a place, you take the best seat, the best food, the best whatever, and then somebody more important than you comes in, and then they're going to tell you, move out of the way, go sit at the back. You're going to be made a fool. Who made you a fool? Yourself, because you came in and did everything that you should not be doing. Jy neem nie mense in ag nie, soos ons altyd sê. Jy moet altyd mense in ag neem, nie jouself nie. You're not the main one. You must always see who else is there. You must always be the humble one that steps back and allow somebody else to do it. But when they are bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room. So go back, not when you went to the highest one. Go to the lowest room, that when he that bade thee cometh and may say unto thee, friend, go up higher, then shalt thou have worshipped in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be ashamed, the word that they use there. And he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. We all know this actually. A lot of people always, our parents and grandparents always said, you don't do it this way, do it that way, and this out of this story. Because if you do something out of your own and you want to be the main one coming into a room and taking over, you're going to get humiliated. You should actually, when you come into a place, be humble and be at the back, so that the guest that invited you will call on you to come to the front, and then you get exalted. Then they do it, not you. But if you come and you go to the front on your own without the guest that invited you doing that, it's actually pride. All right, and then you're going to get embarrassed. Jy gaan verneder word. But this section has got a lot to do with pride, because you think you're so important that you can just come in and take all the food off the table without looking at what anybody else wants to eat. But if there's one piece left, first see if somebody else wants that piece before you take it. Or, all those types of things. You don't do something, you first look at what somebody else wants to do. The best are not always for you, it might be for someone else. The main thing is that thing is saying is you've got to think of others before you act of what you want. You've got to look at the others. You see what Jesus is saying here to us and to them. Always look at the other people first before you do something. It's always better when somebody exalts you than you exalting yourself. If you do it yourself, it's pride. Then it's me, myself, and I being the main one. But we've got to choose how we deal with these things. Are you humble when you enter to do something like that, like it shows here? Or are you prideful? You do it your way. You don't care what people who want something else. So remember, we just had an example of a donkey and an ox. And now it's to do with pride. Those were in a dark place. And now we're doing with prideful things that are happening here. So he's basically pointing out these things. And all these things are speaking about people that are not sons of God. They are either lost or they are religious. And he's saying they need help. And when? On the seventh day, they're going to get help from him. So, then Jesus continues by giving other examples. So he's not finished showing these religious leaders their wicked ways and wrong ways. He goes and he does another parable. So he's not finished yet. So he's giving them now two things to say to them all these things. And then he goes and he does another one. Then, verse 12. So you can see Jesus really emphasizing this thing because he's giving them now the third example of what is he actually saying here to them so they can get this. Then said he also to him that invited him, When thou makest a dinner or a supper, call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, and a recompense be made thee. What that is saying is, don't invite people because you want them to invite you. Alright, now he goes and explains this that he just said there. You see there it says, otherwise they might invite you in return as a payback. Alright, verse 13. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind. And thou shalt be blessed, for thy cannot recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. And when one of them that sat at meat with him heard these things, he said unto him, Blessed is he that shall eat bread in the kingdom of God. Then said he unto him, A certain man made a great supper, and bade many, in other words, invited many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, invited, Come, for all things are now ready. So the servant's going out to invite the people for this feast. And they all with one consent began to make excuses. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. So the servant came and shewed his lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, Go out quickly into the streets and the lanes of the city, and bring it hither the poor, the maimed, the halt, and the blind. And the servant said, Lord, it is done, as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and the hedges, and compel them to come, that my house may be filled. For I say unto you, that none of those men which were bidden invited shall taste of my supper. This is a hard one. The first two were very gentle still, but here he goes full on attack in what he's saying here. So he's saying there's going to be a feast, and you may only call the poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind. Why? Because all the others had excuses. There's poor people. Poor people is people, it's a type of people that have nothing in their spirit. They lack everything. They're poor. It's not to do with money. Maimed people, it's people, we always say in Afrikaans, hulle teerpad langs gestap, né? There's people that had a hard life. They've been maimed, trampled on by life, by people, hurt, down and out. Lame people is people who walk the wrong way. Might be Christians that are lame and can be unsaved people also, but a lot of Christians walk also have a wrong walk. Blind people are those ones who have no spiritual insight. It's believers, but they have no spiritual insight. They might have been blind to the gospel, or to grow, or whatever the case may be. But remember, he said, invite them. You see all these broken, hurt, not knowing, doing it a bit wrong. He's saying invite them. The ones that life have spat out, people don't care about. Even the religious ones that don't know, because there's a lot of them that don't know, they're not doing it deliberately. There's fathers' children that just don't know. He's saying invite them. But not the ones with pride, like he just shared in the previous two examples. Not those ones. Jesus then goes and explains what is he actually trying to say here in verse 17. If you look at verse 17, he says there, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. This happened on the Sabbath day when the servant goes out to say, come. Who's going to be the servant on the Sabbath day to go call the people? You. Jesus is going to have his wedding feast, and he's going to say, come, let my people come. We are going to have to go get them. Who are the ones we're going to get? He's going to tell us to get. We just said them, named them. Important thing. How does Jesus then see a son of God? If we are sons of God in the making, so on the seventh day we're going to be mature sons of God, how does he see us? As servants. See, you're still not important. You're still not something. We're still serving him, the king. I said, you're a servant. It's a noun, a person who works for another person, especially performing household duties like cleaning, cooking, or other personal services. You do stuff for somebody. That's what a servant is. More modern meanings, you get people like today, we have public servants, someone who works for the government and serves the public. You work for the government, but you then mean you serve the public. For example, a teacher, police officer, a civil servant. That's more in today's terms. I want you to see things that we have today. You work for people. You do things for others' benefit, not for your own. You get religious or figurative use. Some serve, say they serve the Lord. Others serve God. You get all these different types of servants. This word, I went and looked at it. This word, this word servant comes from a meaning that also means one who serves. That comes from a Latin word that also means slave. And remember, we're supposed to be bond slaves, lovers of God, not normal slaves. It can also speak of an attendant or a helper or an aide. Those are all the things that a servant does. It's a lot of things. You're not going to do just one thing. You're going to do everything for him, for the king. Whatever he asks of you, you're going to serve in all those areas where we serve. So, on the Sabbath day, Jesus is going to send out his sons to call in his people for the feast. Because remember, it's going to be the marriage feast. When do we have the feast of the marriage? When they are married already, and now it's the feast. Because we actually get married when we get born again. That's actually when you get married. So when it comes, it's the feast of the marriage. So we're actually already a bride. We've said that plenty of times before. So I just want you to get the picture. So when we go out on the Sabbath day to bring in these poor, blind, maimed people, they cannot give you anything. But He will give you something. Jesus will give you something. It says in verse 14, then you will experience a great blessing in this life. And at the resurrection of the godly, you will receive a full reward. We're going to have the fullness. That's going to be the reward. It's not going to be money and riches. That's going to be our reward at the resurrection. We will receive the full reward. In other words, the fullness of Christ we're going to receive. That's our prize we're going to get. Not from the people we're inviting so that they can give us something. He will give us something. The fullness. So this thing continues where the servant is going out to invite certain people. But like we read there, immediately they have excuses. The first ones that he asked to come in. The first one. He says, I have bought a piece of ground. I must needs go and see it. I pray thee have me excused. I have bought a piece of ground. Second one. I have 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. In other words, they're going to go pull the plow. That's what he's actually saying. The third one says, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. These 3 things will keep people out of his kingdom. Those 3 things are going to keep people out of the kingdom. On the 7th day, the people are going to have those excuses when we go out to bring them into the feast. The first one, where it says, I have a piece of ground, it can speak about worldly riches, property and everything. Also speaks of yourself, because you are a piece of ground. The Bible says we are a piece of ground. Where the ground is either fertile or not. So it can speak of yourself, a lover of yourself. I've got to look after myself. So we are the ground. I want to work for me, myself, and I. It's all about me, myself, and I. That's what it can also mean. Those people will not adhere to the call for the feast. The second one, the one with the 5 oxen. It speaks of people being religious. Oxen is part of the law, or the offerings. So religious people. You're going to get a lot of religious people saying, no, that's not true. We're waiting for the rapture, whatever the case may be. They're not going to want to come in. How do we say it? I have my church, my beliefs. And unfortunately, those people are not going to maybe want to adhere to what you have to say, what Jesus is calling them for. Can also speak of people that are working in daily lifestyles, that are not willing to come out of Egypt. They want to leave behind their riches and what they've worked for and all that stuff. They don't believe what you're saying. They don't want to leave Egypt, the worldly ways. All right, the oxen. The third one is, I have married a wife. It can speak of the lust of the flesh. People that are in the lust of the flesh. And it also speaks of people loving their sin, their soulish ways. Because your soul is the bride. So the people that love themselves, that's lovers of themselves, lustful, fleshly people, they're also not going to want to hear this, unfortunately. Those are the ones that are going to have excuses on the Sabbath day, on the day of the Lord. Then in verse 21, he repeats what we read in the beginning. The poor and the maimed and the old and the blind. Once the Sabbath is done, the host, which is Jesus, says, go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, that my house may be full. So understand this. This servant is going to go out and he's going to get the poor, the maimed, and all those, and they're going to come in. The others are going to have excuses and say, we're not going to come in. The ones we just explained, those three, they're not going to want to come in. So once they go out, guess what? There's still lots of place left. And then Jesus goes, like on the Sabbath day, like they say here, and he says, go to the highways and the hedges and compel them to come in. Where are the highways and the hedges? It's outside of the structure, the religious structures. It's outside there. It's not in the religious buildings, it's outside where people are. He's going to say, go there. Outside the church systems, the religious structures. Then he ends this whole thing and says to them, remember he's speaking to the Pharisees and the lawyers, the who's. In today's terms, he's speaking to the lawyers and the pastors and the dominicans and the rabbis and all the people, the guys that people look up to. And he ends off in verse 24. Verse 24. And this verse, none of us would want to hear. For I say unto you, that none of those men which were invited shall taste of my supper. That's hard. They will not be invited to the supper. In Afrikaans, want ek sê vir julle dat nie een van daardie manne wat genooi is, my maaltyd sal smaak nie. That actually shows us, we always say, I know what's going to happen in. It shows us on the seventh day, in the future, on the day of the Lord, there are going to be people that's not going to come into the kingdom. And why? Because they choose those three things we just discussed. So let's sum this up, this 7-day thing that Jesus is trying to say here. God's invitation is generous, but it requires a response. As He is inviting these people, it requires a response. Excuses, even reasonable sounding ones, can cause people entry into the kingdom. Those who humbly accept the invitation, the unlikely guests, will enjoy God's fellowship. Those who reject God's call will be excluded from His supper. I want to read here Revelation 19. This is actually a very harsh one, this parable we just went through. Because he's showing for 3 times that actually pride is going to be a problem. Just like the enemy, that pride caused him to be kicked out of heaven, people with pride in those areas will be not part of the supper, of the feast. Here in Revelation 19 verse 7 it says, let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to Him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and His wife hath made herself ready. Oh man, that's so beautiful. Look what it's saying. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to Him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and His wife hath made herself ready. Who's that? It's you. You made yourself ready. You see, there was something you had to walk in to get there. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. It's saying there, this bride, you, us as people, will be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. In other words, we are going to be not just glorified, we're going to be pure. White speaks of purity. And who's going to make you pure? He is going to make us pure. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. That's why they always speak of linen, is to do with the righteousness of the saints. And He saith unto me, right blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. Do you see this Revelation is speaking about this parable that we just read? where everybody's invited. Here he's giving us the same thing with more detail on what he's saying, what he was saying in Luke. He's saying, Blessed are they which are called into my marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said unto me, These are the true sayings of God. He says, Blessed are the ones that come. And look how many didn't want to come, and what we just read. You see how Revelations 19 is speaking about the same story we read actually in Luke 14? The supper, the feast that's to come. But those that will come, the wife, the ones that's a bride, he will give them fine linen, and they will be made white, wear white, pure. So in Luke 14, Jesus issues this invitation that God is preparing a feast and calling people to come now through this faith and repentance that we just read. And then in Revelations 19, the feast takes place. And those that who accept the invitation, the redeemed ones, are now gathered in communion with Christ at his feast. So the great supper in Luke looks forward to the marriage supper of the Lamb in Revelations, speaking of the same thing. Together they form one story. God invites believers, and they all are welcome to enter into brideship with him, so that we can partake in the feast that's to come. Jesus gave them 3 examples. Why 3? Because it speaks of God always. Because if you understand this, what he's saying here, you will be at his feast on the day of the Lord. That's why it's so important that he's emphasizing this, and he's going to do 3 different examples so that they can understand, and that we can understand why and how important and how beautiful the Sabbath day is going to be, the day of rest. How we are together, we as servants are together, the ones that he's going to call in. And there's unfortunately going to be a lot that don't want to come in because of their excuses. But you saw and you read the prize that he's going to give to those that enter, the fullness. That's why we follow him, because we love him, and because we follow and love him and do what he commands us, we will enter into his fullness on the 7th day, on the Sabbath day. But I want you to understand how important this is for him, that he goes in such detail to explain the story so that they can get it and that we can get it today. The first one was a guy that had dropsy. He was swelling and he needed healing. Second was the ox and the ass that was in this deep dark hole that needed help. And the last one is this festival or this feast, and he's inviting people. The host is inviting them. And remember, if you look at that thing, he's inviting everybody in the beginning. He allows them all to come. But they choose not to come. And that's going to be, on the day of the Lord, the thing that we are going to face, the sons of God are going to face and walk in, and you will receive a reward because of your relationship with him in that.